Every week on the Totally Radvertising podcast, we meet with founders, CEOs, writers, and directors to talk about the creative choices that have made the biggest impact on their brands. And this isn't just any podcast because
it's Totally Radvertising.
I'm Dallin Koski.
And I'm Damian and Dallin.
It's totally rad. It's totally radvertising.
And welcome to the Totally Radvertising podcast. I'm your host, Damian Dayton, and today we're joined by special guest host, Sam Farley, our head of business and CEO at Creatively here.
How you doing?
Really excited to have you here.
Excellent.
And our guest, Ben Perkins from one of our favorite brands, and caller.
Notice not special guest. Special. You are a special guest. I'm not a special guest, just a guest.
You're just special by the nature of who you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ben, you have a way of making people just feel good being around him. And I'm not the only one that's mentioned this. Is like, just great working with Ben. He's just complimentary and says great things.
Genuine.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I wasn't fishing for compliments there, mind you.
I'm not afraid to fish once in a while, but I mean it. We've loved working with you guys over the years. But for those at home or in their car, or wherever they're listening, tell us about And Collar, what it is that you guys do.
And Collar is a performance menswear company. In other words, in real people's terms, it's dress shirts that are a little less bad. And it started out just white dress shirts. Now we make pattern shirts. So at Damian, you're wearing what I'm wearing, and now outfitting the full wardrobe. So if you need to look good, why not be comfortable during it?
Yeah, I remember my first experience with And Collar. We bought one at the office because somebody said, "Okay, you should do a commercial for these guys." And I bought one. I'm like, I like their packaging, but it's a white dress shirt. And as I'm walking through the office, all the young guys are like, "Oh, that's And Collar. We love them." I'm like, nobody says that about their dress shirts. Everybody can't get out of them fast enough. And then you showed me the hydrophobic ones, and I'm like, "Oh, look how well this works." And I poured a Coke on it because I'm a slob, and it filled my pocket because it was so hydrophobic at the time. And I'm like, "This is a perfect shirt for me," because I dribble well. When I go to In-N-Out, they say, "Are you going to enjoy this in your car?" I'm like, "I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm going to eat it." And it was so great. But what I didn't appreciate then is I just look and feel better in my And Collar shirts. They fit me better. I pull it out of the laundry and put it straight on. I don't have to iron it, and love that. And it just stretches and moves. As my body stretches as I eat, it continues to flatter me. And so I like that about the shirts.
Yeah, I appreciate the compliments. And that is how we started our relationship with you personally and professionally. You as Damian and you as Creatively I remember that's what sold us, that you were an actual customer, where you run into someone, they're like, "Oh, I love your product." I'm like, "Oh, have you tried it?" No. Yeah, okay. I know I'm questioning you. But every time I see you, you're wearing a shirt. And obviously that's 4.5 years later. But even at the beginning, you made an effort to wear the shirts, and it felt like you genuinely liked it based on how much you were promoting it. Maybe you're just a great salesperson.
I mean, I did make a note of wearing it today. Yeah. But anybody at the office can tell you I'm wearing. Oh, I know. When I'm not wearing T-shirts, I'm wearing And Collar dress shirts.
And we appreciate that. And I will say what you were talking about, where people don't have that emotional connection with a dress shirt, that wasn't really what we were pursuing. It was just feeling comfortable as yourself, and maybe we get into it later. I wouldn't consider myself an aspirational or inspirational figure, and the brand isn't either. And I actually like that about, I think what I liked about Creatively's advertising, where it's not saying, "Hey, Damian, you will become," this might be a Damianism, you won't magically become this guy with a girl in a red dress and with a red Ferrari. It's like, we actually like you as Damian, the guy with the glasses who's making jokes about his body growing. We're just going to help you enable you to be more comfortable in the settings which you'll already be in. So you mentioned a funeral, life's biggest moments. That's the most morbid and sad, from weddings, if religious, baptism, to a graduation, to funerals, to your first job interview. It kind of, you're wearing a dress shirt. It's a part of those rites of passage, and no one cared about that. You in your biggest moment, no one
should be comfortable.
no one cared. Where what I love about PillowCube is saying, hey, I spend 8 hours a day on this thing. And for those who don't know, PillowCube is a brand of yours.
For the plug.
Yeah. So you sleep 8 hours. So I want that neck hole to be filled where, I mean, you're getting married. You might as well feel comfortable during that moment. That happens once in a lifetime. And our shirts are affordable. So just spend $48 and invest in comfort for that big moment. Yeah. Okay, plug over.
No, it's great. I love wearing, just like you said, because I feel like it myself. I can do the things I need to do. I used to be all T-shirts all the time, and now I've got to be a little bit more serious, and it lets me be me and show up for business. What we like to start off with is an exercise. We tell our clients we're professional video makers, but everybody is a professional video watcher.
Yeah. Can I interrupt really quick?
Yeah, you bet.
Exercise spelled like I'm exercising a demon, or exercise spelled like physically?
No, an exercise like a physical.
Okay,
But
I was about to leave. I didn't know what I said.
Exorcism.
It's radvertising. I wasn't sure what that entailed. So
that's at the end. This is in the beginning.
You made me sign something with lots of fine print, but I didn't read it. So sorry for that.
Now you own an MLM.
Yeah.
I mean, a timeshare and an MLM. So just get two friends.
Great.
No, the funny thing is, if we did an exorcism, you would leave. But if we did an exercise, I would leave.
Yeah.
No, but this is, we tell our clients, anybody's reaction to a video is totally valid. So the fun part about the podcast is we're going to watch a video. We'll embed a link in the description so people can watch it on their own. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And more of a critique than a criticism of it. We are a clean podcast, so there is some swearing in this ad. Full disclosure that we will bleep out. That will be, but I think that is also something we'll want to talk about. So 1 second, and at this point, we'll cut away to the ad.
Every year, on the second Friday in January, we get Quitter's Day. That lady's ass is gigantic. You're never gonna be there. You have a regular butt your whole life, and that's okay. Now, you see, Quitter's Day is the day when everybody abandons the charade of their pathetic little New Year's resolution and accepts the inevitable slide back into mediocrity. It's pretty tight. Quit! Stop! You're not meant for this. You're meant for the couch. You're meant for a margarita in your backyard.
Funny ad. I always like to come back and ask these 3 questions. First of all, did you like it? That's kind of a binary, yes or no.
Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ben? I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence on this one. So that's where. Then I ask you my 4 Super Bowl questions. Well, we asked the first one, did you like it? Do you remember who it was for? What was the brand?
Ladder Coaching.
Great. And do you know what they did?
They looked like physical training, coaches teaching me how to do yoga, meditation, lifting, running.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how likely are you to look into or purchase this product?
Considering this is the 3rd time I've watched it and I still haven't, probably a 2.
And that I'm probably about the same, but it might be my same level of fitness and fitness interest. But thought it was a really funny ad. I love that they created a character. I think that's one of the best things. So let's talk about what we liked and what we think worked and what we think didn't work about the ad.
Yeah.
What'd you guys like?
I mean,
You guys
I
were
always,
both yeses. So.
Yeah, I always appreciate humor. I thought the humor, the dialogue, the script, I think was well written. So that's one of the things I really liked. One of the things I didn't like was actually the choice of the talent. Every single person in it looked like they regularly go to a gym. I probably would have preferred to see someone more like me that made that New Year's resolution and probably is going to quit, but that would help me get past, versus everyone I saw was like, you're doing pull-ups. I can't do a pull-up, but you're doing one right after the other. Like, what do you mean you're not going to the gym? So that was.
Well, I don't mean to brag, but last year I did a push-ups.
Push-up, yeah, no comment. But I appreciate that you did that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now let's talk to the fitness guru.
What about you? I mean, also, you were a collegiate athlete. You played sports.
I was rostered on sports. Big difference between being rostered on sports and playing sports.
Well, I always tell people I played left of coach, right bench.
Yeah, that's right.
But that was only through high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you like about the spot?
Yeah, the character, the fact that there's a fairy, I mean, that's pretty funny. And I think the fact that there are memorable zingers, where typically when and even after the first time watching, the fact that I could go and tell someone, hey, did you see that ad with... I reached 1/8 potential. The locker room got a laugh out of it both times, with the little bleep on the second one when the woman, trainers
blur,
in there, or the blur. And so the fact that there are a couple zingers, I didn't notice it, but agreed with Sam now looking at it. I'm like, oh, that person doesn't need ladder. That person has been laddering for 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. But
You're off screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
But yeah, character development, really liked. The thing I noticed that I didn't love, so they make sure that I know a ladder coach wasn't there, but I only saw a 3-second shot of the app, and I'm like,
good
I don't understand how that teaches me how to run on a treadmill or to do pull-ups. So is it full workouts? So I'd say... Yeah.
They spent more time explaining the metaphor that who's actually there and who's not there than they did showing it working.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big missed opportunity for them. I think this concept was strong. I think Stavros and creating a quitting fairy and like, oh, this is something you can totally own was really awesome and excellent idea. I was kind of felt like the pace was off. Because it was recommended to me, I watched it, but there's a couple of kind of cringe points or slow down points when I felt like, and I'm big on long form, but I feel like you have to earn every moment and you don't have to use everything that they said. Like, oh, he said that and that was funny, so let's use that. And they spent too much time explaining them. Like I needed to get a joke quickly and then let's get to the point. Let's show it working, show the difference. And I wanted less argument between the coach and this fairy and more of like this person taking power over there. It's like they were arguing back and forth. This is one thing that consistently we find, nobody likes to watch an argument. It's like when you're visiting your friends and they start arguing with their mom, like, Mom, leave me alone. You're like, you're shrinking and playing Nintendo. But nobody likes to watch somebody else have an argument, but you do like to feel empowered and stuff. I think there's a lot that I like about it. But pacing was a big one for me. I think some people, they go long form and they slow down to a TV's pace, but you remember people are a swipe away and something for a cringe for a second. So let me ask you guys how you felt about language, because that's an interesting thing. And cringe, we find that people like edgy humor, but more and more, the fastest growing demographic on Facebook is your grandparents. And more like, oh, I like this, but people are less willing to share stuff that their grandparents are. And I found that, I don't want to be on like a moral high horse because we've definitely used plays on humor and edgy jokes and stuff. But it's interesting, a lot of the profanity was directed towards the ladder user, either from the fairy or from the ladder coach. But the user and the customer, who was supposed to be me as an avatar, I was like, I don't like you. I don't want you talking about my butt. I don't want you calling me that name. I don't want you calling. And so, I think it's really interesting how you use language. I think you can definitely create attention, make a strong point, even make a punchline. But if you're making your app user the punchline, I think it's really interesting. Did you guys have any feel? Like, did that evoke any reaction with you? I was kind of like, do I want to share this? Also knowing you, Ben, as a person, like you're careful with your language as well, and a very positive person. I thought I would see what you guys' response was to language in the spot.
I can take this one first.
Go first. I've got something.
The language doesn't bother me, and I think I'm desensitized. Where I very much grew up in locker rooms and British culture, where if I wasn't being sworn at, I was worried. So the language didn't bother me. Neither did the body issues, but kind of Sam's point about, now looking in hindsight, like, oh yeah, probably doesn't hit with the person who has body, not body issues, but is uncomfortable about their current body. Seems like that's what would motivate me.
The people that are trying to overcome.
Yeah, that are trying to overcome it. But it's, it seems very counterintuitive. This is just going off of what you said. It didn't feel that way. And, I'm blessed that I never once thought about my body.
Oh, you will.
Yeah.
You will.
Oh, I'm starting to. I'm starting to. I know. But yeah, that didn't bother me. The language didn't bother me. But now looking at it, I'm like, oh, that seems like a big disconnect that the butt of the joke,
Was,
pun intended,
was
the person's butt. Where it's like, I think unless you're a really competitive person, that probably demotivates you. And I imagine the people who are not that competitive are the ones hopefully going to ladder to improve their lives a little bit.
Well,
and that's painting in broad strokes, but it didn't bother me in the moment. Is my real answer.
And I think for me, it didn't bother me in the moment. I more look at this as a critique and like, oh, are they being aware of who and how? It's language. You had a thought.
Well, yeah, and I apologize to our editor if you're gonna have to bleep me out. but yeah, I think in one ways, and this is what you hear about cursing altogether, is sometimes it's just not creative. It kind of feels like you're dumbing it down by having to use that word. But coming from a creative space, I think there's so many other funny words you could use than just saying ass, ass, ass. Which I also thought it was ironic that when one of the trainers said bitch, they did bleep that out. And so, I know there was an ad that we did that used a lot of cussing, but it was all bleeped out. And I thought the humor was the bleeping, not having to hear the word, but the bleeping of it, that added to the humor. So I think in that case, they could have done so much better and made an impact by using creative words versus just the same one over and over and over again.
Sometimes it feels like, oh, this is funny because we're being so naughty right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that words inherently have good or bad value personally. I like what C.S. Lewis said and said, their value is how people receive them. And as a writer, we spend a lot of our time trying to deformalize our language, to make it sound more like people talking instead of the way people write. And thinking about, I was more interested in how it was directed. And the one word that was bleeped out, it was like across the bow of her face. And it made me think, like, that was the cringe moment. Oh, even though I think he was directing it towards the fairy,
right?
It made me think like, oh, that feels wrong that your coach is like, and I was even more comfortable with the fairy saying it because it was true to his character. This crass, Anyway. So anyway, that's, I don't know, maybe I'll give it, let's say I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Do you want to rank? We haven't done this before. I just thought.
Oh, wow.
A 1 out of 10 score.
1 out of 10. I'm assuming 10 being really great and 1 being really bad. You know what? I'm right there. Probably 6.5. I mean, I did laugh. It did get a reaction from me. It's always when you sit back and you look back when you start to really critique it. But in the moment, you know what? I'm going to go up to a 7 because it did entertain me in that first glimpse. But because the reason it's a 7 and not an 8 or 9 is the whole time I was sitting on that. These people have been in a gym forever. Yeah, you're not talking to me. You're talking to the gym people already. So that's why I can't go higher than a 7.
I'm clearly the least perceptive. I didn't notice any of this. And I base something, humor, how funny it is, if I laugh by myself. It's not a social laugh. And I watched it last night. I was kind of giggling at probably 4 or 5 parts. And I'm not a performance marketer, but I think I'd be disappointed with the product because what I like about creatively product is it's very choppable in the best of ways where I don't need it to be served in 1 3-minute or whatever that was, 2.5 minutes segment where it can live on the site as a GIF. It can be cut into 15, 30, 60, where to your point earlier about pacing, that feels very one-dimensional. So if I was looking at it from that way, I'm like, oh, I can only use that in one way because you need the full joke. But I'm going to go in the moment. I was like, I thought it was an 8. I thought it was funny.
Well, we wouldn't be discussing if it wasn't worth discussing.
Right.
And the fact that it got passed on to me, and I've said this before, you can buy time on Meta, you can buy time on YouTube. The most valuable space you can buy is living rent-free in people's heads. And enough that it got us to talk about it. And, it did more than the average ad, and I think that's awesome. So let's talk about your journey, Ben. Let's talk about how you started the company, and why you started the company, and I want to talk about some of the creative decisions that you've made, that the big swings and hits and the swings and the misses.
Yeah, this is the boring part. Lots of misses.
Well, we all have to. I think even, I always tell people like, hey, not everything's a home run, but we always get on base.
Yeah.
You've got to be swinging on base.
I'll expedite the first part because I think that's the more boring part. And you can find that anywhere. So that hopefully then I can get something out of this from you two teaching me what the creative journey looks like and where we could improve. Long story short, initial idea was Under Armour dress shirts. So it was called Wicca Sweat. I designed it on my family's mic. When you have back in the day, you had a singular desktop computer in your house. Not everyone had a laptop. It was in Hong Kong, hot and humid. And that was right when Under Armour and, Climacool and Dry Fit, those materials, synthetic materials, for those who don't know, they were coming to the forefront of athletic wear. I was like, hey, my dress shirts are horrible. I have to wear them to school and have to wear them in those big moments. They're horrible. I'm a teenage boy for whatever reason. I latched onto that being my worst problem. I had a lot of other problems. But I loved my soccer jerseys, and I was a goofball, and I'd wear the turtleneck Under Armours, if you remember that. That was the first real product. I'd wear that under my dress shirt, and I thought it was really cool. My parents must have been horribly embarrassed about me, but I just loved the feel of the material. And so living in Hong Kong, I was close to manufacturing country in China and started sourcing materials. But back then it was, barriers to entry were much higher, and MOQs for Under Armour dress shirt, so spandex polyester, was like 20,000 units. And I was working off my parents' allowance. And I have great parents, but it wasn't that much. Yeah. And so the logo lived on in infamy. But nothing came of it. Started a different venture. I was blogging about soccer equipment. I was an OG influencer, believe it or not. I can't get over 100 likes now on Instagram, but back then. Anyway, fast forward the years, ended up going on an LDS mission to the Philippines, where the uniform, of course, is a white dress shirt.
White shirt and tie.
What Sam's wearing. And you wear it every single day, hot and humid, same conditions. And I was like, this sucks. And came home, knew that I wanted a really good resume builder. And so I was like, I can't really get a job because I'm on a college soccer roster, not playing. And I was like, hey, I've still got this Wicca Sweat idea in the bank, and started the sourcing. I sent a dress shirt and I sent a Utah Jazz jersey. I said, combine these two. Really sophisticated. I'm a really technical fashionista. Yeah. I don't even know if we have a tech pack to this day. A million units later, we do, but I didn't make it. And it took 3 or 4 tries. The first one was, if you know The Incredibles, Edna Mode is walking them through, and it's all spandex. I mean, the first prototype was for Elastigirl. I mean, you could have stretched it from here to there. The next prototype was like a version of the Constitution, the most wrinkly thing on planet Earth. I said, okay, let's combine these two. And anyway, we stumbled there, and I needed advertising help, branding help, whatever you want to call it. And my sister was in the BYU Ad Lab, the advertising program, from which I think you hire. And I said, hey, I'll pay you and your group of friends that do all your projects together $500. It's still on our accounts payable, by the way, accruing interest. But I said, I'll pay you for $500 so you can go to Sundance. And so you created a brand and get jobs at, big advertising agencies. We all liked each other. So we're like, hey, let's do this thing.
Well, one of the hardest things, though, is you created, performance shirts are now a little bit more common, but you kind of created this whole cloth out of new. And I think that's one of the biggest creative challenges when you have a new product that you have to explain. It's like this, but it's also like this.
Yep.
And you can't just say one thing. So what was your first creative success where you thought, oh, I think we might have something here? Where you did something with marketing and people responded in a way that made you think, okay, this isn't a horrible idea.
Yeah, we didn't invest really into marketing, and so that one's tough for me to take any credit, where there was just really good product validation. And that was the first, 2 years. I think we spent $3,000 on advertising. That probably includes content creation. So
So what were you doing at that time?
If I'm being
though?
honest,
yeah, if you weren't,
you can't
doing it.
really. I mean, we'd say. I mean, you just beg friends and family, be like, "Hey, buy this." I mean, you were a professional sales teacher or professor, I
Yeah.
believe. So I did that. I mean, I can't say I'm a marketer.
Pound and pavement is what we call it in the sales industry.
Where
But
it's like,
you early you established a tone for your ads though that
Yeah.
it wasn't. You didn't use models looking handsome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're attractive people, but they're people having fun too.
yeah, and that's true. And it probably helped. The only people I could afford were those who did it for free. And so my friends, I was like, "Hey, friends, just smile while doing this." So that's probably, we could say that. Where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, the dress shirts are boring. I don't want this to look like Brooks Brothers. So that's probably, if we're being nice to me and have to find one, yeah, we can call it that. If I can jump ahead in the story, honestly, when Creatively came along, so Damian and Jay, if they're the humans of Creatively at the time. So time frame, we did 300,000 in net sales in 2019. So however many units that is. And so somehow people at Creatively got a hold of that. Damian reached out on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, we should do this thing."
It was Clark Bigler was first. He was
Okay,
he was our
that's-
accountant at
yeah,
the
yeah,
time.
that's
He was
right.
like, "You got to check this out." And I was like, there was something about the packaging before I even liked the shirt. I was like, they've got personality. And then I saw what the shirt could do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's talk.
Yeah. And I guess to that point, and I'll give credit to Jordan, who you both know, I think color is imbuing the brand with color. If I had to say something where it's the top button. You know what? I'm going to call that. It's the top button.
Yeah.
It's
My son said they would always do end collar checks.
Yeah.
They'd pull down and check.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? I'm changing my answer. Just cut the last 4 minutes. It's worthless. Where it's saying, hey, you can't put a swoosh here. No one's going to buy that. But can you make a distinctive mark? Whether it stands for anything or not, we're not mission driven. I hate to say it. But it's like, oh, we are a community of people who collectively didn't like our old dress shirts and traded up without necessarily paying up. I like that soundbite. Let's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you're saying you're not mission driven, but I think you have inherently said it. You don't have to have a mission statement to have a mission. And everything you've said though is like you shouldn't have to change who you are to change your clothes. And like you can dress up without dressing out of who you are. And I think that's part of your mission that I feel that's what I felt from the beginning. It's like, oh, they're having fun and it's a button-up shirt that was dressed down in everything that you said. Also, I was like, this would be fun.
Well,
this would be fun, and I know how I want to sell it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We, I guess the only other stuff we did was on a camera. We did a lot of stills that were horrible. The classic in Provo at the same building that everyone does. But a couple of videos. It was a product iteration in 2019 where we threw on the hydrophobic, so the water repellent, because it's clickbaity or whatever, thumb stopping, whatever. I know you have more technical terms. Because then you could start to do stuff with it, and it's pour chocolate milk on it. So that was when we started to think about video. But yeah, going back to you reached out to us. We went to lunch. COVID hit, and the first thing I thought is, we're screwed. A company that sells dress shirts, barely even a company that sold a few dress shirts, a couple thousand dress shirts, to a world that is not wearing dress shirts. Talking about nightmare. And so I was ready to pack up shop, tell my family I was a failure, because I told them I was going to turn down good jobs to do this stretchy dress shirt thing. The line between unemployment and entrepreneurship, very thin. And yeah, you came in, we met, we were interested, COVID happened. And then I remembered, we're like, hey, let's swing. Going back to the baseball reference, let's either give this thing the old college try or fail faster. And this Damian and Jay group, this pair, they seem to know a little bit about video and advertising. So let's do it. So
we were making up a fair amount at the time, but we were based on sound principles. Yeah, I think.
And I think that was the first time there was, going back to an exercise, the first time there ever was an exercise or thoughtful exercise about brand and what we could be, the 5 Ds. Do you still use the 5 Ds or have you added?
I preach them every day.
Yeah.
We have some secret ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think occasionally you throw on it's the Amigo Monto, you get the extra.
Yeah.
Six-fingered man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Yeah, I'd say that was the first time it was ever intentional. It's like, okay, do we check these boxes? If so, how do we message? So this isn't me just saying it because I'm on Radvertising. I'm on Radvertising, the inverse, because I think the creative journey began, honestly, at your feet.
So what was your growth that year then? You said you'd done 300,000.
Yeah, so 300,000 in 2019, which was the year people bought dress shirts. 2020, and I think we're actually on a Creatively ad. We ended up doing 2.1 million. Most of that happened. We did 100,000 in sales May. We shot in April in a COVID constrained world. I remember that was the most guerrilla type. Yeah.
We shot in a warehouse and our crew had to be separate from our actors and everybody. We had COVID, people on set trying to keep everybody healthy and swabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's where it began. And that was a series of 3 videos. Most of it came off the back of one, which you wrote. Ampersand is what we call it. Very few people know what the ampersand is. I'm still amazed how many people call us @color. Like, okay, we got some educating to do. But the ampersand, I'd say that was probably the first foray into this can be something.
Well, I'd say that we learned a lot together because I think not all of our pieces that we've done have been a home run. That was certainly a great one. But I also say, like, you're always so kind to us. But I've always said the secret to marketing is an amazing product. Amazing marketing will just speed up the decline of a bad product. People just find out it's a bad product sooner. And we were just like, this is amazing. Can we use our skills to just get it in front of more people? And there was a lot of love for it, right? We already knew that you had a high net promoter score. There's a lot of early signal that was like, hey, if we can help pour the gas on this fire. And it's been a fun journey. I think we also at one point maybe went too big, too early after that. But then also I think we've also gone into UGC, and I think we've all learned some lessons about UGC, which has been useful, but has kind of hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
What have you guys found around UGC lately, and what are you finding that works for you?
There's a few occasional winners. Corey Stevens, who's a friend of yours, at least I know, he's going to make where it feels like, this pendulum where before my ad account was totally populated with UGC. You make fun of it. I know there's a Creatively ad making fun of it, rightfully so.
Honestly, we even say in the video, we use UGC. It just can't be your whole account.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say we missed the UGC boat, and that's because of ineptitude. Or, it would have been great to have some UGC. We just didn't even do it. We should have whitelisted, from said UGC creator. So we missed the boat. Now there's a couple pieces, not many. I think where it's effective is, customer or persona segmentation, where it's interesting where all of our customer purchasers don't look the same. And there's also a disparity between purchasers and wearers, or wearers 99.99999% are men, but purchasers 45% are women.
Yeah.
And so I think
that was a big aha in our strategy.
Which I'm giving credit to you, Sexy Dad. And we can talk about that later. But to the UGC question specifically, I think it's good to test messaging. It almost feels like the first foray into what ends up being a higher investment into bigger and better production is my take on it. That's not wrong. Again, I said I missed the UGC boat, so I am no expert.
Well, I think we weren't definitely on the wave because what we do is so different. But now we're finding you need a full content ecosystem.
Yep.
Right? And that's I've been preaching from the beginning, but sometimes I'm blinded by, I do this well, so it's going to be this. But we're finding the most success currently with clients that are investing in a significant piece at the top of the funnel, and sometimes we're helping them with middle and bottom funnel, but they are invested in content. They're putting on podcasts, they're doing blogs, they're doing their own information. And so once I hit that ecosystem, I'm seeing all sorts of different things, and I don't just feel like I'm getting the same ad over and over and over again.
And that's where I was going with Corey, where I think the UG, you get what you pay for. And if I pay $100 to Sam, like, shoot something on the iPhone, I think that's what you make fun of. Or I'm like, do any of those live in our account beyond $1,000 in spend? No. But the ones that are a little bit higher production, a little guided. So Michael Bunn, who's an introduction of yours, one of the more intelligent people I know, he said, I believe it was him.
One of the designers at Owlet.
Yeah. One of the original.
Corey Stevens was the founder of TAF, for those that are listening.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to name drop. I'm saying people who've been thoughtful about design and creative, where you don't want to cede control of your brand to this random creator I'm paying $100 to that I found on Fiverr. But if you can craft the message and say, hey, touch on these things with this sort of lighting, that automatically elevates it just with a little bit of direction, where I think it was a scattergun approach. It's like, let's just pray that something happens. So what I was saying with Corey, it's like, hey, still a little bit higher production. You talked about podcasts. That was the Film Lab team. They did, it was this podcast that I was on with Trevor Crump. Filmed by Film Lab.
Bestie podcast.
The Bestie
He's
podcast.
been a guest on the show too, so.
We ended up spending $100,000 on a podcast clip of the two of us. It's higher production, but it feels a little more UGC-ish. So Corey, we're paying to film that type of stuff, where I think when people say UGC, it's the iPhone. And personally, that hasn't ever scaled an account. Maybe it lives on our product page as a, hey, this is a real person using it. But in terms of, getting people to actually watch it. So Corey, it's like, oh yeah, I bet we can spend 15, 20 grand on something he can put together for $1,000.
Yeah. We find that UGC is kind of like a meat and potatoes in a lot of things. It's a filler, but you're rotating it through every 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
We have a program now where our same writers that write Heroes will write UGC, but then we give them to content creators and collaborate with them. Production value is low because we feel like it is disposable content, but we can still be mindful about how we produce that and stuff. Well, I wish we had more time. Our time is running a little bit short. I want to thank you for coming down here today and talking to us. Still continue to love everything that you guys are doing at Ancaller. Love your brand, love you as a person, and all the people connected with your brand.
Well, I appreciate it. Can I take 60 seconds to give a Creatively plug? And I'm not paid to do this, but if you look at our ad account, so this is, and Creatively pushed the little bird out of the nest to spend a lot. We spent a lot of money, but again, we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't spent. And you learn faster, as you spend more. The biggest credit to Creatively is that if you look at our ad account today, January, whatever it is, 22nd, 2025, there's something filmed in April 2020 that still is our top spender. And so I think if you find a winner, it's like scale that thing to the moon. And I'm going to, less than 45 seconds, winners from Creatively. And I'm going to actually do Creatively agnostic, but still winners. Sexy Dad. Just unfortunate that, SAG, I wouldn't pay SAG again. Yeah. Because you can't really scale.
That was a learning for us, too.
But still, that one cost a lot of money. I don't know if I'm supposed to say how much, but it has an ROI because we spent $1 million against it. It's like, if it costs whatever, it's worth it if you find a winner. That one was a winner. A loser was us trying to recreate Sexy Dad and it wasn't through Creatively. And I don't think it's any fault of the people who wrote it. It's just there was magic for whatever reason, and we had to recreate it because of SAG. But the ampersand is today. But my favorite is the Devon Supertramp. That I don't know if you wrote it or if you just kind of passed it on to them and made the connection. The Commuter. So all of that to be said.
We had a lot of stars aligned for that piece.
Yeah.
I'll put the link to that in this piece. Devin, because all of his clients had canceled on him because he involved in international travel. We had just hired a writer who was a hip hop artist, and I got him to. He's like, "Well, I just wrote this song." I was like,
I still listen to Fridays. I still listen to it.
Yeah, it's a great song. And I was like, "Well, could we use this song for this?" And I really just had an idea, and Devin ran. I mean, I was on set with it, and it ran with it. But I still love that spot too.
Yep.
I have a brief cameo at the very end.
Oh, I know.
And my kids.
Donuts is what you say.
Donuts. Yeah, it's like one of my few lines in a Creatively commercial.
Yeah. So sorry, I was just trying to say that it can be expensive, but if it's the right, I think that's my biggest learning. And what stinks about it is it can be expensive if it's not the right video. But I think if you do enough tries, you hopefully get a little bit better. And that's why we made 5, 6, 7 videos with Creatively, and even I've tried to take the learnings beyond that to say, hey, what worked? Why did the exercise? We don't do it as thoughtfully as you, and the fact that we're still spending 5 years later is the biggest testament to good creative. And I wish I could take credit. And people always say that's a good commercial. I'm like, I literally had nothing to do with it. The only thing I did, this exercise here. About watching a video. I remember I felt weird. It was a little eerie where you pitched it to us at the old Creatively office and I don't know if you still do it. Everyone watches the client. I was like, this is weird. I'm like, I feel like I have to force. But yeah.
We look out of the corner of our eyes.
Yeah. And you're like, that's how we judge. You laugh. Why did you laugh at this point? I'm like, I don't know. I just laughed. And so, long story short, the plug is create, and caller, 50 million in revenue later. You can't say and caller without saying creatively. And I genuinely mean that. If I didn't, well, one, we wouldn't still be spending against creatively ads. Two, I wouldn't be on Radvertising. And three, we wouldn't be here. So,
Well, thank you, Ben.
yeah.
So if people want to get the greatest performance dress shirt on the planet, where do they go to get it?
andcaller.com.
Awesome. And you know what? I say there's a difference between costly and valuable. They might have the same price tag. Your shirts are not costly. They're valuable, but they're also not too expensive. They're affordable. And I do appreciate that about them. Thank you. Early conversations, you decided to make them affordable. There's other performance that are 2 or 3 times more expensive, but yours, I get true value. I am still wearing the same ones that when we made those commercials I bought. I get a lot of life out of them. Love the work that you guys are doing, the product you're doing, and I love you as a person, Ben. Thank you so much for being on. And for those that are listening at home or in your car, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or keep on watching on YouTube. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.
It's totally rad. It's totally rad.
Join us every week right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you listen to stuff for your pods.